Such a pleasure to be here. I want to thank the Explorers Club and the AÇORES for hosting such an incredible event. And kind of ironic that we started today with space. My conversation, my story is going to also start from up there. And this is a photo, obviously, of the International Space Station, the cupola. And when I first came across this image, I've been staring at it for 3 years. It's so beautiful, and I've actually had it plastered on the side of my office, right next to my computer, because there's something really special happening in this image. Now, obviously, this is a picture of Cuba, but as it relates to my presentation today, the Bahamas. And the Bahamas in Spanish literally means shallow seas. And what's really striking about this image is that you can see this incredibly blue aquamarine color. In fact, some of the people who spoke earlier today collaborated with astronaut Scott Kelly, who actually proclaimed that the Bahamas was his favorite place that he saw on our planet from space. And the Bahamas have been a really special place for me. It's where I've been doing the most work through my organization, Beneath the Waves, for about the last 10 years or so. So looking at it from more of a two-dimensional perspective, the Bahamas is huge. It's a huge ocean state. It's about 600,000 square kilometers, massive. And I've been really fortunate to explore most of it, and you can even see that some of these carbonate banks here, which we saw from the ISS, are very present. These are shallow carbonate banks. There's two of them. There's the Little Bahama Bank on top and the Great Bahama Bank on the bottom and around the side there. And they're the oldest carbonate banks in the world, and the largest carbonate banks in the world formed several ice ages ago. The reason why the Bahamas has been so special to me is because it's a shark paradise. And it has been that way probably forever, but there's been two policies that were enacted. In 1993, the country banned longline fishing, so that basically afforded sharks the chance to not be caught as bycatch in the deep waters. And then in 2011, they declared the Bahamas a shark sanctuary, which prohibited all capture and killing of sharks. So what we have here is this 30-plus year protection experiment that has allowed us to essentially go in and study the ancient life cycles of these animals. I mean, there's literally nowhere else in the world where you can almost guarantee to see a large tiger shark. This was actually the first tiger shark I swam with underwater, actually the first tiger shark I ever took a picture of back in 2010, and it was just unreal for me. I jumped in, and this was like I was diving into the pages of my childhood, because I've been obsessed with sharks my whole life, but I had no idea how important tiger sharks would actually become 10, 12 years later after this photo was taken. One of the research questions that we've been interested in, and this is a project that is compiled from so much long-term monitoring, was to really understand, well, how do these animals use the protected area? Are they benefiting from the protection? What do their migrations look like? And these are common questions that a lot of researchers, terrestrial, aquatic, marine, are asking. But when we looked at all these satellite tracks from 10 or so tiger sharks from the late 2010s, we were really blown away with how they really hone around and within these carbonate banks. And tiger sharks in other parts of the world are known to be associated with seagrass habitat. And we know that there is seagrass habitat in the Bahamas, but this is really where this story is heading. So this is really great. We were able to, look at these data and convince policymakers to keep the protective measures in the Bahamas intact. Again, as part of a long-term monitoring project, now we wanted to zoom into the daily lives of these tiger sharks. What are they doing on a daily level? How do they use different habitats, and how do they survive? So we've been putting camera tags on these animals, and we like to say that we partner with the tiger sharks. There's no ownership in that regard. These animals are literally the best researchers that I could ever collaborate with, and I think I'll be able to convince you about that as I move forward here. So we put these camera tags out on the tiger sharks. They pop off after 1 to 2 days. Then we got to go find that camera tag, and when you do, it's like Christmas Day. This is one of the tiger sharks being released. You can actually see the substrate here in the Bahamas. This was back in 2018. There's a lot of seagrass on the bottom. And when we started looking at the data, at first glance, it wasn't that remarkable. Beautiful 14-foot tiger shark. I actually know this tiger shark individually. I've seen her for 3 years in a row. Her name is Mabel. We don't name all of them, but she's very special. Where else can you see that anywhere else in the world, right? Wild tiger shark swimming over this beautiful, lush seagrass meadow. And the first few times I looked at this, it was exciting because it worked. Getting it to work is the first step. But then when I showed this to my collaborator, Dr. Carlos Duarte, who's one of the most accomplished marine scientists in the world, and literally the leader in seagrass ecology, he said, Austin, you might be onto something really big here. It's been predicted that the Bahamas could have really expansive seagrass meadows, but nobody's ever really properly mapped them. And the only estimate we had of how much seagrass was there was from a predictive model that I think suggested 2,000 square kilometers. So that's really quite small. Why is seagrass important? Side note, I never thought I would be so excited about seagrass because I'm a big animal guy. So I think a lot of my friends and colleagues are a little worried about me that I've become so obsessed with a plant. No offense to the plant people out there. But seagrass is really important because it sequesters and stores 4 to 8 times more carbon than rainforests. This is a term that's known as blue carbon. This is a mainstream topic right now. Everybody's talking about it. And seagrass used to be seen as the ugly duckling of the ocean conservation world, and now it's mainstream because it stores that carbon forever. And it's now being seen as a global climate asset because it is a nature-based solution to fighting climate change. We need to make sure that all that carbon that the seagrass stores remains forever. So Carlos and I started talking, and he said, well, let's make sure that this isn't just a one-off. Let's call up our tiger sharks one more time, and let's see if we can collaborate with them. So we started putting 360-degree cameras on these tiger sharks. This was actually the first time this was ever done. And what we learned through the 360 cameras is that the tiger sharks could survey and serve as oceanographers 7 times more ecosystem and seafloor than just the unidirectional camera. And what you're seeing here on the right-hand side is a plot that was generated by a tiger shark. We did the coding of it, but this is all them. But what's really striking here is that this tiger shark was able to generate a heat map. And as this animal moved forward, it was able to detect and hone in on seagrass habitat. We saw this for over 10 individuals, and we learned that tiger sharks actually spend 70% of their day over seagrass habitat. Now we were convinced. We realized we probably had another opportunity to go deeper. We had to take some of this mapping potential into our own hands. There's a photo of Carlos and I and a bunch of his students on our research vessel, the Tigris, named after the female tiger sharks. And we started doing some of our own empirical mapping of the seagrass. We started going to some of these places the tiger sharks went to, and these are remote areas, 10 meters deep, but you won't see anything for 25 miles, or 40 kilometers, so it's pretty impressive. So this validated the tiger sharks were going to dense, expansive seagrass meadows. This is why seagrass is an incredible technology for sucking and holding that carbon. This is a natural erosion of the seagrass, and this is about a 1/2 meter root system. So this is what holds all of that carbon. And we started working with the world-leading technology company for mapping called Hexagon, who have these incredible sensors using LiDAR. We worked directly with local communities in the Bahamas to help validate and ground truth some of the remote sensing work. We took an aerial approach, and we harvested hundreds of thousands of images from Earth-orbiting satellites to map out how big was this seagrass meadow. We started flying our own planes to look at, in greater detail, what that seagrass meadow looked like. And the results were pretty amazing. We calculated a spatial extent of 93,000 square kilometers of seagrass in the Bahamas. This is a composite map of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. You can see here, it's all green. Those were the 2 carbonate banks. This is what we saw from the International Space Station. This is what many explorers that we were even talking about today, several hundred years ago, probably encountered when they were coming on their expeditions. As a matter of fact, our LiDAR mapping has uncovered hundreds of shipwrecks that are just buried in 30 feet of sand. Pretty interesting stuff. So by partnering with tiger sharks, we have discovered the world's largest seagrass ecosystem, by about 2.5 to 3x, the second largest. This is a photo of our boat. This is actually one of those shipwrecks that I was mentioning to you. And as far as the eye can see, you have seagrass. We estimate that there's about 1 billion tons of carbon trapped and stored in the seafloor here. So it's pretty significant, and the role of tiger sharks was further evidenced by the fact that they swam a lot deeper than we did, they swam for a lot longer, it was more cost-effective to collaborate with tiger sharks, and they're a lot cooler than most of our research assistants. But what's really striking here is that the tiger sharks were actually able to validate all of the remote sensing predictions with their data. So they really did support and guide the discovery of the world's largest ecosystem, seagrass ecosystem. So about 10 months ago, we brought this discovery to the Office of the Prime Minister in the Bahamas, and on my left there is His Excellency, the Honorable Philip Davis, and his cabinet, and they were very excited. They were really empowered and inspired to see how the protection of sharks has led to this new discovery, and that this could really be a solution for them moving forward through things like carbon finance to become a more resilient country. They're a small island developing state that does not emit a lot of GHGs, but they're really bearing the brunt of it. And just earlier last week, this week, in Lisbon at the UN Ocean Conference, the first group to actually announce this was the Bahamas delegation. So it was something we were very proud of. I know the Bahamian people were extremely proud of. And the Bahamas is positioning itself now as a future world leader in blue carbon. They will be selling these carbon credits. They're creating an exchange. This is going to create long-term recurring revenues through a sovereign wealth fund that will empower conservation enforcement, paying off national debt, all of these different initiatives that are really important. And it could be really transformative for the country, something I'm extremely proud of. So when we think about what's next, well, we've continued to do a lot of this work. We've started doing sediment core analysis, and we're actually putting these cylinders down into the seagrass and measuring carbon, and we're learning that the carbon that's stored there, it is ancient, pre-industrial levels and beyond, and it's actually more carbon in the Bahamas seagrass than anywhere else in the world, tropical ecosystem-wise. Very, very exciting. And what's really striking to me is that we wouldn't be able to do this without tiger sharks. And what other amazing discoveries are out there? This was hiding under our noses in plain sight forever. So many people say to me, Austin, didn't people know that the seagrass meadow was there? Nobody really paid attention to it. So this discovery, which is coming out in peer-reviewed literature very soon, it really underscores the striking gaps that we still have in our knowledge of the ocean ecosystem, how much work is still out there to be done, and that we need to rethink our relationship with wildlife, that we're not just studying them, that we're really partnering with them. They have this incredible ancient knowledge, and to be able to work in intact ecosystems like this, it's just so really special. And I think that it's no stretch to think that this could be one of the most important discoveries in our ocean in the last 20 years. But what I think is most important is that it demonstrates that if you can save the sharks, you can save the humans. Thank you so much.